and there do you meet Grandpa, and where do you get married?
Well, there's a long story there I could tell you, and maybe my children should know about it. When I was growing up in high school, a lot of my girlfriends were dating steadily. I wasn't. I wasn't popular, I guess. Anyway, I dated, sometimes their boyfriends would bring a boyfriend to meet me, you know. I did some blind dating that way. I just never found someone that was very interesting to me. And when I think it was when I was starting my senior year in high school, I wanted to get my patriarchal blessing. So one of my girlfriends and I got the recommend, called the patriarch, and she came over to my place, and the patriarch came and gave us a blessing. Obviously, because now I'm a senior, one of my girlfriends just got married because her husband was going in the service. The Korean War had started by then. So a lot of the guys were heading off to war. And so she got married, and a lot of them, I had two of them that got married as seniors, still in high school. So three of them maybe. Anyway, one thing I really wanted to know, okay, what does the Lord want for me? What's my future? Am I going to, you want me to, you know, get married and have a family? Where will I ever find someone that I like? Because the boys, well, a lot of the boys these blind dates were members of the church, but they weren't active. And that really bugged me. These boys had the priesthood, and they weren't active. That was not acceptable. I was not looking for that kind of husband. And so when I was having this blessing, and there's one paragraph that he says that I will, you know, find this husband, and we'll be married, we'll raise a family, I'll follow in our footsteps. Okay, that's good. When I was having this patriarchal blessing, when the patriarch got to the point that he told me that I would marry and have a family, a spirit came over me that I have never felt. It can't be anything but a spiritual experience. It was so strong. Obviously, took a very few seconds of time, as the patriarch wasn't stopping for me to have this spiritual experience. But I felt like if this doesn't stop, I will die. It was so strong. It was just took me over. And for good blessing that it did go away. It melted out, and it was near the end of the blessing. So it was lovely. But that's an important part of what I want to tell. Now, it was a few months later when Arlen went on a mission. When I had the patriarchal blessing, it was about September of my senior year. Arlen went on his mission in January of the following year. And when George came along, my husband to be at that point, Arlen and George knew each other. They were working in the same district, I guess. Knew each other. Arlen always liked George. In fact, he called him my boy George. And he'd say to me, you ought to write to him. You ought to write to him. And you know, I don't know this person. I wouldn't know what to say. But then they were made companions, even though they'd only been out 5 months maybe. And one not senior to the other by only 2 weeks. They were put together probably in July of that first year of their missions. And my mother, having Arlen, her oldest and first chick out of the nest, she wanted to see where he was, wanted to see him, wanted to go there. And missions were a little different. And his mission president was kind of divided between that mission and running a farm or a cattle ranch, really, that the church owns in Florida. So he was pretty loose with permissions. And he said, well, they can come down if they come get here like on Friday night. Saturday was preparation day then, or P-Day. and then we'd have to leave. We could be there Sunday and then go home. So that's what we did. And it was about the end of August when we went down there, and my two younger brothers and I went. Glade didn't go with us. He had a job or something, a girlfriend probably, whatever. And so we went down there, got there on a Friday night, and that's when I met George. And we had fun, you know. If you know George, you know he's full of teasing and just fun. And it was a day off for them, so they were laid back from their missionary work. And I don't remember too much what we did. I think we drove around, saw things, and went out to the beach and saw the ocean again and all this. So then we left on Monday morning early. I remember Arlen and George being out of the car. We were loading it up and that, and turned the car around in the street of this little avenue where they lived. And as clear as if it were spoken in words, a voice said, "You will spend many an anxious day before you see him again." I mean, I knew they were talking about George. I don't remember exactly the words. And I thought, what? That's crazy, you know. I mean, I spent 2 days here. This is nothing. But I didn't forget it, you noticed. And so I had, after I met George, it was his birthday in another month. And George, Arlen's egging me on all the way, you know, with this, and saying, well, write him a letter or send him a birthday card. So I went and got a birthday card and sent it to him. It was kind of a funny one because he was a funny guy. And then occasionally, a few weeks later, he wrote to me, and a little later than that, I wrote to him, and so on. Well, Arlen and George were companions from about July till January, mid-January probably. I knew that George read my letters to Arlen, and I wrote to Arlen about every week, so anything I really wanted George to know, I just told George. I told Arlen, and it was the same thing. Anyway, but then they split up another pair of missionaries, and George was sent one place and Arlen stayed in the same place, and neither of them liked either of their companions, so they still saw each other quite often with missionary meetings, you know, that would come along. But we wrote to each other, and at that point, regular mail went by train. Stamps were 3 cents. Airmail was 5 cents. We did move up to 5-cent airmail somewhere along the way. And it was probably near the end of June. He wrote me a letter and blew me away. I remember I came home from work and Mother said, "You got a letter from George," and that's where it is. And I picked it up and went in the living room and sat on the arm of an upholstered chair there and was just reading the letter. And I got to a part where he said that if he felt the way when he got home as he felt like he did then, that he wanted to marry me when he got home. I mean, I very quickly got off the chair, off the arm of the chair, sat in the chair thinking, what? This was kind of out of the blue. But from then on, our letters did change a little bit, as though we may be working toward this if he still felt the same. And when it was time for him to come home, getting toward there, you know, the end of his mission, he started talking about me coming down with his parents when they came down to pick him up from his mission. I wasn't sure of that one either. I thought, well, what if it isn't the way we think it's going to be, and we're stuck together for a week? This is not going to be good. But he just kept at me, and his parents said, yeah, come on, we'll take you down there, it'll be good. So I did go with them, and it was, I think somewhere around the 25th of January, probably, when they came down and stayed over, and then we left the next morning, which I think was a Sunday, and we went through Arizona. They had some friends that spent the winter down there, George's parents did. And so they went to the temple on Monday. Must have had temple ceremonies on Monday. Anyway, they went to the temple with them. And of course I couldn't go, but I showered and washed my hair and dried it in the sunlight in January. Woohoo! This was something. And then anyway, we left there and we got over to Ontario, California, where George was serving at that time, and got there in the afternoon of Wednesday. So that's when anxious could be over with. I was finally seeing him again. and we had a good time. We did. We got along well. We went and visited people that he had been teaching. He even taught some people while we were still there, because he really had about 3 more days of his mission, although he told his companion, he says, my parents are going to be here with my girlfriend this afternoon. I'm done. You guys go out and do whatever you do. This is it. And even though we did go meet people that he had taught and baptized, and even went, I remember for sure one family that he went and taught during those few days before Saturday. He went into the mission home and was released, and then we could, go and do whatever. So I think on Sunday we went up to another place where he had, I think maybe North Hollywood, where he and Arlen had served actually. Went to church there and then we started on our trek home. And I think we got home about the next Wednesday. I think we were together about a week when we got home. Later that afternoon, he wanted me to go for a ride. Oh, we had been riding a long time. Oh, you sure? I don't really want to go. I just wanted to get away. Okay. So we went, and that's when he asked me to marry him. And he even had a ring for me that he had bought months ago. Arlen helped him pick it out. I mean, that guy, he was afraid I'd never find anybody. Guess maybe I'll take my favorite companion and make a brother-in-law out of him, and that's what happened.
How did Grandpa propose?
He just asked me. We were just sitting in the car. He didn't get down on his knees. I don't know if he knew you were supposed to. And I don't know whether I did either. Didn't matter. Anyway, and so I had my ring on, and then we went back home and had dinner with the family, and I was doing things just right-handed. I wanted him to tell them, but not at the first amen, for the dinner. But Arlen knew that he had this ring, and he kept kind of watching to see if it was there. So George finally did tell him that he had asked me to be his wife. So then we started looking, okay, so when would we get married? And I thought June was soon enough, and he thought April or May, and then he got up to the farm. When he got home, I did go home with him when he went back to Idaho and listened to his homecoming talk that Sunday night, and then came back and went to work. But he found his uncle had a 40-acre farm, and we got this farm now. We got to get planted. I can't be gone. There's a certain time to plant, whatever. And talked me in finally to moving it up and up and up till it was the 25th of March. So we were married on the 25th of March in the Salt Lake Temple.
What year?
1953. He had been on a mission. I'd known him for a year and a half, since I met him until he came home, and we'd written some and all this, but it was always a long distance thing, through letters. The medium between us was the mailman. and then we want to get married. I would not have dared to say yes so soon had it not been for the spiritual feeling that the Lord is telling you this is the one. And then he told me again when he mentioned it in the letter. So I knew it was okay with the Lord. In fact, he was saying, this is the one. So I know everybody thinks 7 weeks from the time he asked me to marry him, I did marry him. That's pretty short, especially when we really didn't have any time together, any dating. Arlen says, you married a guy you never dated. And pretty much it was. He would come down sometimes on a weekend, or I would go up there, and you know, we'd see each other. And I think that was the reason we could move it up, is I thought we knew we wanted to get married. We knew it was good. And we're still not together. He's home, but his home is in Idaho and mine's in Salt Lake. So we just decided, if we're going to spend time together, we're just going to have to get married and get acquainted here. So that's why we married that soon after spending such little time together. Sometimes I think I got cheated a little. I didn't get dated, and we didn't get acquainted in the normal dating way. But when the Lord speaks, I'm smart enough to listen. Something that overwhelming. Now, sometimes he has to tell me things several times before I get there. And I still questioned it all the way along. I wasn't sure. And I certainly didn't expect to be proposed to a week after I had actually met him in California at the end of his mission. That's just the way it went.